Welcome to Triangle BNI. Today's show is brought to you by Oak City Tech. Each week, folks, we talk about how loud and crowded it is in the digital world. So you need professionals like Oak City Tech to help you get found both by your current clients and your future clients. So go to oakcitytech.com. They'll be able to help you with anything you need in the digital world. Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Manning. Each week on Triangle BNI, we bring you a local small business success story. If you're not familiar with BNI, it is Business Networking International, the world's largest networking organization. Our little slice of heaven here in the Triangle is Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill in North Carolina. And each week, about 30 chapters, almost 600 members get together. And our sole goal is to help our fellow members grow their business. Our special guest today, our local small business success story, Mary Elizabeth Twiddy with Edward Jones Investments. Mary Elizabeth, glad to have you here today.
Good morning, Mike. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, so you and I have had this conversation before. Your first name, Mary, is the greatest name on the planet, male or female. I've loved it since I was too young to even remember. What names do you get called by different family members and friends?
So the running joke in my house is I have a double name because I was always in trouble. So Mary Elizabeth, but I think really the truth is more that my dad's from South Carolina. You almost have to have a double name down there.
Does everybody call you Mary Elizabeth?
For the most part, I got a little creative when I was growing up, and I think every year in elementary school, I went by a different name. So depending by when I met some of my longest friends, they might have a different name for me. Went by Mary Beth for a short time. Some people call me my initials, ME. So yeah, I pretty much have to answer to anything at this point.
My wife's brother is the third. And depending on who met him, when is he in his life, he's either John, Trip, or JJ.
Yeah.
And once Becky and I met and got married a couple of years after being married, and I started meeting some of his friends and the family friends, it came clear to me like, oh, you met him here, but you've only known him since here.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of like dates your history.
Well, we will go with Mary Elizabeth today. Mary Elizabeth is in RDO5, Triangle Business Builders. They meet Thursdays at 8:15 in the morning via Zoom right now. But if you're in the Briar Creek area, once BNI gets back to meeting in person, they meet at the Triangle Shooting Club. You joined after Zoom, correct?
I sure did. I joined sort of late spring, early summer last year. So it's been kind of interesting to get to know the group largely only on Zoom. But I think like any good business owner, you have to pivot for the times. So
have you been able to meet many of them in person yet?
Many, yes, either for, one-on-ones or things like that. But there's still some in the group that I've yet to meet.
It's same with my chapter, and even in through the Garner Chamber and other places like that you and I run in. I'm telling people they're my COVID friends.
Yeah.
Because I've never met them face to face. And we had, you learn, I did meet, and I'm going to pick on Michelle Owens. She was on our Wired to Change podcast a few months ago, and we'd only met via Zoom. And so I met her at the studio, and she gets out of the elevator, and I said, hey, nice to finally meet you. And she goes, you're taller than I thought.
Yeah.
And I looked at her and said, I don't know how to take that.
I know. That's totally the way that I know I've not met somebody in person yet, is when they show up and they're either taller or shorter than I expected. Because on Zoom, we're all the same height in our little box.
I know. It is so funny that way. And from your chapter, Jed and Marcella and Matt, previous guests, friends of the show. So I'm a big fan of your chapter. It's healthy and happy, and glad you found that one to join. Glad you're in BNI. What was the decision on why to get into BNI?
That's a great question, Mike. And, I've been with Edward Jones for almost 6 years. I've built a good book in that time, but I am just so passionate about finding more people who need my help. There's a lot of folks out there that are not getting good advice, or they have their own strategy, and then something happens like what happened in March of last year, and they begin to question that strategy. And so even though I've built a good book of business and I'm very happy with the clients I serve, I'm always looking for people that sort of fit into my niche and that I can help. So I've always kind of kept my eye on BNI from afar. I've visited lots of chapters over the years, and I've networked with a lot of people who are in BNI and spoke very highly of it. But I knew for me, it was not about just being in any BNI; it was about being in the right chapter. And so, Deborah Goff, actually, with Accounting and Tax MD, she and I knew each other from a women's networking group that we had been in together for some time, and I reached out to her on LinkedIn, which I think is how we met too, Mike, just trying to make
Yep.
some new connections or rekindle old ones on LinkedIn. And she said, this is a great BNI chapter. I really think you should visit. And their financial advisor seat is open and they're looking to fill it with the right person. So it ended up being a great fit and I'm very happy to be there.
Well, good. And from what I remember, that was a healthy competition too. They had a few
It
people come
was.
in. So there was something you did or said that got you in there, which I'm happy for, because your chapter is a lot like mine. We have that character factor.
Mm-hmm.
The business is there, the relationships are there, the networking is there. Your group is a lot like mine, very focused on doing that. But you got to want to wake up in the morning and go see them. That's why I always like to have the character factor where, all right, a lot of these people entertain me. I want to keep coming back on Thursdays.
Yes, absolutely. And you've got to have those relationships where you can really see eye to eye and get to know each other well. Because especially in a field like mine, you're not going to be in line behind someone at the grocery store, probably,
Yeah.
and have them turn around and say, hey, do you know a good financial advisor? And so when you're looking for that kind of referral relationship, it has to start with the relationship.
Yeah, the financial seats and the personal services seats that involve health. Anytime
Mhm.
you talk health or money with people, it is personal and they've got it. It's to the point where you have to pull them aside. In my new member training I do every month, I always talk about the July 4th cul-de-sac picnic. Mom's over here, dad's over there, kids everywhere else, dogs running, everything. And it's easy to talk school and vacation and cutting the grass, maybe painting the house. But rarely will you have somebody walk up and go, man, about ready to file bankruptcy. Do you know a good financial advisor?
That's right. Or, hey, I just inherited a bunch of money and I really need some guidance,
Yeah.
People are kind of hesitant to share that information with just anybody.
Always like to educate while we entertain on the show. And I find any reason, and if I can't find a reason, I'll shoehorn a reason in to mention my grandson, Oliver, who will be coming up this weekend. Very excited to go find some excavators and all the road work going on around here. Just top of mind things to think of. Let's go from grandparents or parents with a newborn. What are some things for down the road planning to keep in mind?
Yeah, that's a great question. For parents, I'm really big on life insurance. You're already, a lot of parents are married, they might have a mortgage, a car payment, and now you've got a kid. If something happens to you, you really need to be able to set your spouse up to be able to take care of all of those things and still wear that parenthood hat while they're dealing with tragedy. So that's a big focus of mine. I'm quick to recommend that to everyone and help them discover the right amount. For grandparents, a lot of times it kind of shifts and they've saved well for retirement. They don't have those debts anymore, those obligations. It becomes a really fun conversation about, well, what do you care about? What kind of legacy do you want to lead? Do you want to help your grandkids go to college? Do you want to help them purchase a house later in life? All of those sorts of things. And I'm really big on, working with CPAs for finding some things to do with taxes and big on QCDs. We've done a ton of those this year, which is a qualified charitable distribution. Sometimes that's a great way for you to make a contribution from your IRA to a charity that you support or to your church. And there's some tax advantages to doing that for some folks. So those are kind of, quick things that I talk to most of my grandparents about.
Well, good. And I've told my son, Travis, who is Oliver's dad, that we will start. So we're still trying to figure out, he's only 2.5. So we're still trying to figure
Mhm.
out exactly what we want to do. And I told Travis, I want to set up something for Oliver that after college, pay off some debt, like you said, buy a house or start a business. I'm not starting a knucklehead money fund. I don't want anybody touching this when they're 18, because at 18, how many of us would have done the right thing with, 10,000 or what,
That's right.
what's in there. But so I told him that's what I want. That's what I'm looking to figure out what to do and when for those opportunities like that to help him move forward or get a jump start on something.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I have conversations like that all the time. Depending on what you're trying to do, it depends on what type of account or what type of investment might be appropriate. And I really talk through that on a one-to-one basis to make sure it's tailored to whatever you're looking to do.
Now, when you were growing up as an 18-year-old young lady, would you have been a lot smarter with 10 grand than us 18-year-old young men would have been, you think?
I'd like to think so.
Good
But
answer.
I actually met my husband at 18 at NC State. So I would say, a little distracted to make good money decisions with trying to blaze a trail as a freshman in college and in a new relationship. So
Even what are the simple things we can do though for our young kids or even teenagers is just understand what a savings account is.
that's right.
Understand where money's coming and going. If they want to buy, and my kids are grown and gone, yours are young, but electronics, right? If you want the latest, whatever it is, all right, it's going to cost $200, right? How are you going to pay for it? Or, you pay half, I'll pay half, something like that. But just get them to understand the value of money.
That's right. And I'm a big fan of whether it's your son or your grandson, if you're planning to gift them money or leave them money when you pass away, have those conversations about what you expect them to spend that on. I've had, to talk, I don't know, lots of clients through that situation where they've inherited money and they're just not sure if they should use it to pay off debt or what their parents' intentions were or anything like that. And I think those conversations can really help drive, yeah, use it to pay off debt, get back on the right track. Or no, you've always wanted blank, use it to put some money towards that and, launch yourself on that path or whatnot. We often don't have those money conversations with our family. And I try to facilitate that anytime I can.
Becky, my wife and I have two boys, and our youngest son knows it's like the royal family. He just keeps moving with every grandkid. He just keeps moving down because he used to be his older brother, then him, and then Oliver came in. So now Oliver's ahead of his dad and his uncle, and our youngest son and I told him, it's like, I don't know if there's gonna be anything left for you, because when you and your fiance have kids, well, you're going to move down another rung. So
There you
you
go.
might want to start your own savings here.
Good advice.
One of the neat things I like about BNI, and I've talked about this before, is it has taught me to shop local. There's a time and place for a 1-800 number and punching in your 16-digit code. But for the most part, I'm a fan of having a cell number of all the people I deal with. And I know that's probably one of the things that has you, and we're going to get into your community involvement here soon because you do a lot of cool stuff. But I would imagine that your clients enjoy having your cell phone number instead of calling the Edward Jones 1-800 number just to talk to maybe a different person each time, which they don't understand you.
Yeah, one of the great things about Edward Jones is we've got, we're such a large firm. So we've got all the resources of the large firms. We've got an 800 number if you can't reach me and you need to place a trade. We've got all the tools online, all the research analysts. But when you call my branch here, you talk to Linda or to me, or if you leave a voicemail, Linda or I will listen to it and Linda or I will call you back. So it's really that personal touch. And that's not unique to our Edward Jones office. That's really just how we do things at Edward Jones.
And your office is in Fuquay.
It is.
So if anybody wants to Google that, where the number, you'll see the phone number up during the show here, but definitely reach out. We had Jim Bowdish and John David Wagner on, and John David's in a chapter I'm a consulting director for. And Jim and I grew up here. We've known each other since about 1974.
Yeah.
And we haven't changed. We both think we've not changed looks wise much at all, but our spouses got to disagree with that.
Yeah.
The other thing BNI has taught me is the connection with the community. And that's what I love about the folks that are in BNI. And I tell people all the time, BNI is not for everyone. But if you're looking for this kind of accountability and partners and teamwork, that I'm a big fan of this. You are the president of Garner Local Heroes,
Hmm.
and it focuses on the first responders. Um, your husband is a police slash SWAT officer.
Yes, that's
Okay.
right.
How did this come about? Because I think it's a great idea.
Absolutely. So, first of all, I really can't take credit for being as involved in the community as I am. It's something that's just in my blood. I mean,
Mhm.
my mom's dad started Lutheran Church in Washington, North Carolina, and was just really instrumental in that area. My dad's dad actually has an interchange named after him in Rock Hill, South Carolina, for all the community involvement that he had. And then growing up, my dad was on just about every board that we ever came across at one time or another. My mom taught choir at church. So it's just part of who I am to be engaged in the community. The Garner Local Heroes in particular was really a passion project of mine. I noticed that, you know, being a first responder spouse, I kind of knew some of the things that they dealt with on a daily basis that maybe the general public didn't, if they didn't have a close friend or a family member that's involved in that. And so, partly as a way to share those stories, and partly as a way to bring some of that attention and appreciation to our first responders, I launched that event 4 years ago, and we are coming up on the fourth annual Garner Local Heroes Breakfast. So I'm very excited for that.
And I'm a big fan of people that do stuff that I wouldn't do. And generally, the explanation for all first responders, everybody from military to medical staff. And this is not political statement. I want everybody to know that. But for people that run in when the rest of us are running out, huge fans of it, because most of us wouldn't do that. And we have to be honest with ourselves that, wow, that's a pretty cool thing that they're doing that to protect us, whether it's from a police standpoint, military standpoint, or just a health standpoint when nurses and doctors run in somewhere to get people out, or firemen,
Right.
anything like that.
Exactly. And that's one of my favorite parts of the event is we present awards to 6 local first responders, and we actually read a narrative for each of them as we're presenting the awards. So last year we recognized an EMT. He was first on scene to somebody who was standing in the middle of I-40 in the middle of the night. And typically the police will kind of physically get somebody into a safe place or out of a dangerous place, but he was first on scene, and great risk to himself, ran into the middle of I-40 and actually had to fight this gentleman to get him out of the way of traffic. So some really cool stories like that. I can't wait for you to hear our fireman story from this year.
Oh, looking forward to it. We are here with Mary Elizabeth Twiddy, Edward Jones Investments. Today's show is brought to you by Oak City Tech. Folks, first thing you need is a good website. You can spend $40,000 on it with Drago and the folks at Oak City Tech if you want to, but you don't have to. But you need something up there to send people to it. And 2 things on the website. One is, if people meet you, they're probably going to Google you. It would help to have a website. And second of all, make sure your website is formatted for your phone, especially if you're my age, because everybody younger than me gets 90 to 95% of their information on their phone. So make sure your website is formatted for the cell phone, and go to oakcitytech.com. They will be able to help you with that. Right. So along with Garner Local Heroes, you also were the founder of Garner League of Women.
Yes, absolutely. Hello.
Do you have too much time on your hands? Mom, a business owner, kids? I mean, what's going on there?
I just saw a need for a women's group in the Garner area. And what started as a bunch of us just meeting for coffee or lunch once a month ended up becoming a pretty big group of women. And we would bring in speakers every month and things like that. Given that I've actually moved my branch to the Fuquay area, Katie Wall has taken over the leadership of that group. And any woman who's looking for some good networking in Garner, it is on Zoom right now still, I believe. So I guess you don't even have to be in Garner, but Garner League of Women, or we call ourselves Glow, not to be confused with the wrestling show. that was an interesting little crossover.
Did you find that you accomplished the goals of your initial vision of that group?
Absolutely. Yeah. One of my natural strengths that I've sort of always had is I love people. I love community. I love bringing people together and getting to know new people and introducing people. And all of that just sort of lends itself to me creating this group. And so I really, really enjoyed running Glow and all the awesome ladies that I met through there.
I always enjoy talking to teachers and ex-teachers. And you
Yes.
were a former high school math teacher. Thinking back to my days in high school, it was a long time ago, but I can remember again how many knuckleheads there were in there. What was the shining moment of your time as a teacher?
Oh, that's a great question. I really, really enjoyed teaching math. It was a very difficult job. It had very little to do with math some days, as you can imagine. But high schoolers are just such a neat group of people. They're so vibrant, they're so independent, and yet they still have so many questions. So I really enjoyed working with that group. But we actually, one of the math classes I taught was called AFM, and it was required for seniors to graduate. But most of the seniors in that class were not there because they loved math. They were there because it was required for seniors to graduate. So I collaborated with some of the other teachers to come up with things that would make it more tangible to them. And one of the things we came up with is a career project where they had to identify a career, what schooling they would need to get there and what that would cost and how they would pay for it. And then what kind of salary they would have once they're in that career and whether or not that would support the lifestyle they were looking to do. And one of my students actually decided he wanted to own a pizza shop and they had to give a presentation. And he brought in pizza dough and like did the whole, pizza dough up in the air. And I will never forget that. That was a really fun day.
I feel for teachers because when my boys were in high school, we were involved with some parent teacher groups. My oldest son went through the International Baccalaureate program. So I know the time involved and how much there's a need for parental involvement as well. But I feel for teachers because I think in today's world, you have to teach a test. You don't have to teach them the information. You have to teach them how to pass a test, which is wrong. So I always enjoy the practical application of life. And again, there's always two words I use, which is Rolodex and checkbook, which I know people are like, wait, what are those? But why is there not a class on just managing money? Just in general, hey, you make $200 a week. Here's your checkbook. Here's your checking account. Here's your savings account. Just practical things like that. I wish they did, but I think those days are gone.
I'm right there with you. And I think a lot of the things that used to be taught by your parents are now not, right?
Mhm.
A lot of us used to balance a checkbook. Now we can just log in online and see what's pending and what's already come out and what's left. But some of those arts, while they've been pushed aside by technology, are still very useful. In fact, I'm a millennial by age, but I actually really prefer paper for a lot of things. And so I've been known to send my clients home with a paper form to do a budget on and things like that. I know it's crazy, but I think, you can implement a lot of that stuff in your teaching. And a lot of teachers do. I think you can teach some testing strategies and still teach the material and sort of accomplish both at the same time.
How nervous were you your first day as a teacher?
Oh my gosh. I backed into my desk and almost fell over while I was talking to my class my first day as a teacher. I was pretty nervous. I graduated in December from NC State, and so I was hired to start with the spring semester in January. But I don't know if it was some snow days or something had pushed the fall semester so that it actually lasted until the day before the spring semester started. So it was my first day in a classroom. I hadn't met with any other teachers really before that. It was a little crazy, but we made it work.
Oh my, those first days in there, just trying to figure things out because you're not only do you have a new job, a new building to go to. But now, how many kids were in your first class?
So that's a good question. I think Wake County is still doing block scheduling, but so we would have 30, 35 students in most of my classes. And I would only have those students for 4 months, basically. So about 100 students for 4 months, and then boom, 100 new ones. So imagine running your business like that with 100 new clients every couple months.
And you can't retain the previous 100 either because they're done and gone.
Right.
But
Got to start from scratch.
yeah.
So.
And when it comes to math, most people hate it. And so there's the people that are good at it, the people that hate it, and then the people who could care less about it. So you must have gotten a wide range of just interest level.
Absolutely. And I think, that the skills I developed showing students that I didn't just care about their math grade, I cared about them, have really lent themselves really well into my current career, because I don't just care about people's money. I care about them and what they're trying to do. And so just going back to that personal connection, I think is so important in any career. And teaching is certainly not excluded.
You went to Cary High School.
I did. Go Imps.
Yeah. We'll get to that in a second. Before you went to state, what high school did you teach math at?
Panther Creek High School, also in Cary.
Ooh, so Friday night football games, who were you cheering for?
Yeah, it was a little awkward at times, but we made it work.
You are a former bodybuilder.
I am.
What does that mean?
So after I left teaching and before I came to work for Edward Jones, I spent a time working a job that I didn't ever take work home with me. And that was my first time really experiencing that. And so I had all this extra time on my hands, and I started working out and decided I really needed a really big goal to push towards. And so I decided to do a competitive bodybuilding show, and I hired a coach and lost a bunch of weight, ate crazy small amounts of food. And really, at the end of the day, I really enjoyed the process. I did not enjoy the grueling day after day, every single day, but the process, I really learned a lot about myself and how strong I am, not just physically, but also, the tenacity to stick to a goal, even when it's really, really hard. I don't know if it's ever something that I'll do again, but it was a great experience for me, kind of early in adulthood and before we had children. So
then looking ahead, now you have a business, a husband, 2 kids. Is any of that process still part of your day-to-day routine?
So yes, I've actually recently signed up for my first triathlon, which was a goal I had, again, back before I had kids. I had this whole list of goals, and some of them got accomplished and some of them didn't, as always happens in life. And so, yeah, I've signed up for my very first sprint triathlon in September. So I am, doing some group exercise classes here in Fuquay with Level 6 Fitness, if anybody wants to check that out. Emmett is the trainer, and he has a All In for April challenge going on right now, not just for fitness, but just to do things every day that help to move your life where you're trying to move it to, which I think is really important.
In your Edward Jones / math teacher / double major of math and secondary education brain, all the things you've had to get certified and licensed for, can I assume you're a pretty good test taker?
I am a good test taker, and I've always really enjoyed taking tests. And I think those two things really go hand in hand. We tend to be good at the things we enjoy, and we tend to enjoy the things that we're good at. So I'll get to put that to the test this next year, because I am beginning to study for my CFP, my Certified Financial Planner accreditation to my license. So hopefully that good test taking will continue to last me.
I can assume it was a little easier to study before kids came around.
A little bit, yes. I think parenthood has a way of changing lots of things, but certainly it changes the number of priorities you have in your day. So I think structure is my saving grace with that. I'm really big on not bringing work home. If I need to work late, I need to work late from the office. And if I'm home, I'm home. cutting up lettuce for salads with my son Eric. He loves helping in the kitchen, or jumping on the trampoline with my daughter, or playing Barbies with her. So lots to do at home.
We are here with Mary Elizabeth Twiddy, Edward Jones Investments. Mary Elizabeth's a member of RDO5. They meet Thursday mornings at 8:15. So if you want to go visit a good group of folks who will entertain you and educate you and make you want to visit them again, please go see them. You can visit online on Zoom. Today's show is brought to you by Oak City Tech. One of the neat things they can help you with, folks, is an email campaign. If you've not stopped to think for a minute that Facebook owns your Facebook group, so they could kick you off. Google owns the stuff, and LinkedIn all that can be kicked off. But if you have your own email list, that's yours. So please go talk to them about setting up an email campaign to stay in touch with past clients, current clients, and future clients. All right, Mary Elizabeth, one of my favorite questions. I love the story. I always ask folks, how did you meet your spouse? And do you both tell the story the same way?
That's a great question. And no, I think we do tell it slightly differently, but my way is the right way. So I'll share that one with you. I was taking a chemistry 101 class at NC State. And for those of you that did not go to NC State, this is a huge weed out course for a bunch of majors, and a huge class. It's a stadium seating. I think there's 3 different levels where you can actually enter the classroom, and a very, very large class. Mine in particular was at 6:00 on Mondays. It was a 90-minute class once a week, and it was pretty brutal. So I walked in the first day and looked around, and I see this guy wearing a shirt that says champion across the back. I'm like, I wonder what he's a champion of. I think I'm going to go sit by him and ask him. And he was a champion wrestler in high school. And that boy in that Chem 101 class is now my husband.
Where and when after that class was the first date?
So quite a while, actually. I gave him my number and asked if we could study together, and study together we did. And he was quite a gentleman and did not make a move. We just studied for that class. So I think it was about 6 months.
Oh, God, I want to hear how he tells that story of that 6-month window. That is so good. But now, did your grades go up studying with him?
Neither of us did great in that class, which I think I'm going to blame less on our studying together skills and more on the fact that it was Mondays at 6 p.m.
Yeah. Yeah. And how many chemistry classes did you take after that?
I took one more. I actually started out, I was an athlete in high school and thought I wanted to go into some sort of sports med or something like that. So I started out in biomedical engineering at State, and decided I liked the math more and the science less after my next science class sophomore year.
And did he take any more chemistry classes after that?
He did not. Nope. He was, I think most of us go to State for engineering and then change our major, right? That's a pretty normal thing. So he started out in computer engineering and ended up in political science. So
now, since this is my show, I get to ask questions how I want to. And I could describe you as a world-class swimmer because that was what you excelled in, and that's your athletic life, correct?
World class might be a stretch, but I'll take it as a compliment. I appreciate that.
My show, yeah.
I did. I really enjoyed swimming in the summers in Cary. There was always swim meets on Tuesday evenings and all the local pools. And then in high school, I did swim competitively and made it to states a handful of times. Earlier on as a relay member of a great relay with lots of talented swimmers on it. And then later on in some individuals as well. So I'm hoping that swimming skill is still strong going into my first triathlon.
Yeah, you can get ahead of a lot of people swimming. That's for sure. As your high school swimming career proceeded, what Olympic event were you going to win a gold medal in? Just you knew there was absolutely you were going to win it.
Well, my main strokes were back and freestyle. And I've always been a sprinter. And I think that's so true in my personal life as well as in swimming, is that I really like to just make a decision and go for something as fast as I can. So I was 100 back and 100 free girl.
I'm with my brother was a backstroker. I'm a good swimmer. I was just never fast, but I love swimming butterfly. I did
Oh,
just always,
really?
yeah, I did just 50. I can go up and back.
Right, right.
100 because I swam in the summer.
Mhm.
And so it just 50 yards that I could do, but after that, but I love watching the Olympic butterflyers, just the motion. It's just
Yeah,
a beautiful stroke.
just so athletic. Yeah,
Yep.
it's
Yep.
really impressive.
For those watching today, tell us about that picture behind you.
Hmm. So this picture actually hung in my grandfather's house while he was living. He bought it when I was about the same age as the little girl in the picture, because it reminded him of me. He had a boat and loved to go out on his boat, sailboat, and he built his own dinghy too. So his dinghy was a little bit smaller than the boat in this picture. But when he passed away, I snagged the picture from his house and decided I wanted it to go over my desk at work because it just really reminds me that all the clients I work with are somebody's grandfather or granddaughter or loved one. He was actually an Edward Jones client before I was ever an Edward Jones advisor. But, he was a simple man. They retired to Little Washington, North Carolina, and had a boat and a garden. And man, was he creative with his engineering of a fence to try to keep the deer out of that garden. But I know he would not have experienced as much success as he had financially from a financial planning standpoint without getting really good advice. My grandmother actually fell ill with dementia when she was pretty young. And so, that's not something people think to plan for, especially 20, 30 years ago. They didn't think to plan for that. And so the fact that he had planned for that, I think really speaks to the level of advice and service that he was getting. And so I try to bring the same thing to my clients to honor his legacy.
I like that because a lot of times we don't think there can be living benefits. We just think everything happens after we're gone, but there are actually ways to set up programs and plans for living benefits as well.
That's right. And to protect you from having to spend everything you've ever saved just to care for somebody while they're still living.
No doubt you are your grandfather's favorite grandchild or granddaughter, but you have two younger sisters. Am I correct?
I do. And we are actually conducting this little interview during birthday month. One of my sister's birthdays was last Friday. Mine's this Thursday, and my other sister's is next Monday. So yeah, we all grew up in Cary. I'm the oldest, and I think I'll claim that favorite title. Sure, why not?
There you go. Do the other sisters have double names?
They don't. But actually, my mom realized my baby sister was like 6 or 7 when she realized that she had named us after Little House on the Prairie. I'm Mary. My middle sister is Caroline or Carrie from the books, and my baby sister is Laura. So.
If I asked Caroline and Laura, what grade would they give you as a big sister?
Ooh, that depends if the grade was based on always telling them what to do, or if the grade was based on being a good follower. No, I think we would all agree I was a very bossy sister, but a very loving sister. And I think that those skills remain true today.
And are they seeing dividends from that?
Absolutely. Yes. My middle sister is actually a teacher. She teaches elementary school. And my baby sister is a pharmacologist. So she followed my suit and went to state for a math degree and then pursued her master's in pharmacology.
Where did the math gene come from then?
So that actually came from my dad, sort of. Both my parents were music majors. And then my dad decided to switch over to math at the end of college, realizing what am I going to do with music, even though I love it so much. So yeah, my dad's very math oriented. We grew up doing puzzles together. And do you remember that old game Mastermind where you
A little
have
bit.
like the,
Yeah.
the four pegs and you had to kind of guess what. Yeah, we played Mastermind all the time.
Now, you mentioned your son that he likes to help you cook. Your daughter, in one of your bios, that she plays the piano.
Yeah, my daughter started taking piano last year and really, really loved it. We're taking a break right now. We actually moved in December, so trying to be a little calmer and get everything set up the way it needs to be. But yeah, I took piano growing up. My next door neighbor was a teacher, and so we would walk across the yard for our little weekly lessons. And I think, music is just such an important part of life. And being able to create that music yourself is really neat. And being able to be a beginner at something and really attain a certain skill level is a really good lesson too. So,
Do you still have good musical skills?
I think so. I like to think so. I pretty much only sing to my kids when they're going to bed now. So we'll have to ask them to be the judge, I suppose. But I love to sing. I can do a little bit of guitar. I'm not very well learned on guitar, but a little bit of piano. So,
And how old are your kids?
so my son is 4 and my daughter's 6.
Is there a go-to song at bedtime?
Yes. I've always loved the hymn Amazing Grace. And actually just a couple years ago read the book about the guy who wrote that. And that's a very interesting story in and of itself. But I love Amazing Grace and I love Edelweiss from Sound of Music.
Yep, I'm with you on that. And when we see our grandson Oliver and we put him to bed, my wife will sing him House on Pooh Corner because he loves that song. And then I sing him Rocky Top because I went to Tennessee and he knows the words to that. So, and he likes both of them. But those
Rocky Top's a good one.
Yeah, those nighttime moments are hidden gems with young kids.
Absolutely.
Did they get any music skills from dad?
My husband has a lot of strength and a lot of skills. Music is not one. He could not carry a tune in a bucket, bless his heart. But if you have any questions about pretty much any song that's ever been on the radio, he could tell you the artist, when it was recorded, what album it's from. He's a lot more knowledgeable about that kind of music than I am.
Oh, music trivia is a good thing to have.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you guys get any kind of normal hours with his life as on the police force?
So I would like to say yes, but no, that would be a lie. There's actually 2 full-time teams that work for Raleigh. And so they kind of switch off. One week, one of them's days, and then they switch to nights the next week. So there is a general schedule they follow, but when duty calls, they go. So
how do you deal with just the worrying every day of being married to a police officer?
I think anytime we find ourselves getting hung up with a worry or some anxiety over something, we've got to back up and look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is there is no doubt in my mind that our Creator created him to do this work. And so when I look at it from that perspective, I can't worry. It's his destiny. It's his calling to do that work. And so whatever may be.
It's got to be hard. I admire the families that have law enforcement, military people, because I know, having in my wife's side of the family's military, and just conversations about worrying just in general. And so I know that kind of have to come to grips with that and figure out how best to deal with that. So it sounds like you have, which is good. But
I won't say I never worry, but we've got good support system from neighbors and family and other police spouses or just first responder families in general. So it's nice to know you're not alone if you're ever feeling a little overwhelmed.
Yeah, I bet on that. Real quick, if somebody's thinking about getting into the financial or the investment world, give me 2 things they should make sure they're good at or look at first to make sure they're going to enjoy that job. Yeah,
absolutely. That's a really good question, Mike. And so I'll back up and tell you a little bit about how I stumbled into this career. After teaching and then working another job for a little while, I was really looking for something where I could really make a tangible difference in people's lives while still having a good family life outside of work. And so I took a whole bunch of career readiness surveys. What are my strengths on a personality basis? What are my strengths in working? What do I want my work day to look like? And every assessment that I took landed on either CPA or financial advisor. And my birthday's tax day, April 15th. That would be a great shtick for a CPA. But I decided I really didn't want to be busy every year on tax day. So I became a financial advisor. I'd say you've got to be even keeled. You can't let your feathers get ruffled easily. There's always going to be doom and gloom in the news about the markets and the economy and politics. And oh my gosh, the big one's coming. And you have to be able to not only not let yourself get ruffled, but to be able to calm other people down. And then you just have to be a diligent student of your profession, financial planning. If you think, a couple generations ago, people retired with full pensions and Social Security paying for everything. And nowadays, Social Security is not paying for everything for most folks, and they don't have a pension. So just the financial planning in general has changed a ton over the last couple of decades. So we have to be able to stay students of our profession to continue to give good advice.
Very good advice. We appreciate that. Mary Elizabeth, we've been putting her number up on the screen. Her office is in Fuquay Varina, Edward Jones Investments. Mary Elizabeth, we've enjoyed this very much. Good to get to know you a little bit better because we are COVID friends, in fact, which is how we met. And I appreciate that. You led me to the Garner Chamber and some cool people I've met there. So I was happy to have you on. But we appreciate having you on today. Good luck with everything. Good luck with your sprint triathlon. And we'll have to get an update from you after the race, see how things went.
Thanks so much, Mike. I appreciate it. I enjoyed it.
And we'll see everybody next time on Triangle BNI.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.